honestly kind of intimidated by it at first, but I said I'm going for it. But how much of that is?
I think that's a really good point. I think, as we hear in the year 2025, we've got a lot of ways to get around a lot of the issues of learning to ride a motorcycle.
Welcome back to Live on Two Wheels. Here's a question for you, Pat.
Yeah.
Why is it so hard for people to become a motorcyclist?
That's a fantastic question. I think it's one of those things. Whoa, we got Dan the fireman in chat. Sorry, I'm derailing this entire conversation right now. What is up, Dan? Welcome to chat. We're doing a quick segment on our that we're gonna rip for YouTube later. So enjoy.
Yes. Well, I gotta throw down against Dan because he's thrown down the gauntlet against the Smart Riders.
Oh, so I've heard of this. Yes.
So he's got the Smart Riders.
Boom, bang, ding, dang, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, there's a new
subscriber. Boom, bang, ding, dang, boom, boom.
Oh my god. Anyway.
What was I saying? Dan
has thrown down the challenge to the Smart Riders. I've heard a little about this. Please explain this to me and to the others that don't know enough.
All right. Well, he's probably going to do a much better job. So he's got the Smart Rider Challenge that is coming up.
Okay,
and
great.
He's laid out these challenges you got to do: run the course and kind of just. It really is a lighthearted competition to kind of just sharpen your skills, which is certainly a great thing.
Yeah.
But Andy Uguni has been over there in Dan's live streams, just basically smarting it up, and almost obligated us into challenging for that. So
that sounds very Goody-esque. That's very on brand for him.
so we're gonna have to. I think Randry's actually already started doing some of the Smart Rider challenges and get some of that filmed. And I just need a nice day to get out there and do that on my 600-pound bike.
Yeah, well, listen, I'll give it a shot on the Super T while I can. So
yeah, but yeah, he has a PDF basically of all the different
cool
different maneuvers.
Great. Where can we find that PDF? Where can the people find that?
Dan, you need 2 first names because name's only half good, so you have to say it twice.
Damn, Jesus Christ!
No, so we're kayfabing it, like the old wrestling promos.
Okay.
Smart versus smart. So
yeah, sure.
Well, let me tell you something, Dan. You want to? Sorry. He's had it.
I love that you also are in a room full of wrestling belts.
I do have some. I actually designed some on the side. Dan, I do design for championship belts. If you,
you're getting an ad right now.
I literally do.
Yeah, that's very true.
I got it. He posted it on Instagram story. He had it like a PDF download from his website as well. But it's a PDF of all the different maneuvers and how you're supposed to run the cones and everything.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's pretty intricate.
Well, hell yeah.
Need to get out there and practice because, like we were talking about earlier with just practicing, taking the MSF course, but also constantly
always doing training, always being practicing, drilling yourself.
Know how your bike handles. That way you don't end up on Dan's live stream, him picking apart your accidents.
Hey, listen, I've got a couple accidents that Dan, I'm sure, would love to pick apart. I'll hit you up and send them over because it's interesting. I'd love to get your opinion on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he says it's on his shop. You can actually go.
Oh, cool.
I think when I got it, it was a free download. It was a free purchase or something. So, yeah, it was. He loves the belts.
Yeah. We'll get you hooked up with some belts, Dan. We'll get that figured out. Mystic, get out of here. Anyway,
I love it.
That's gonna get clipped. But no, I mean, that sounds awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. And I think anything that we can do to promote safe riding practices and strategies are going to be beneficial for the community. Rising tides raise all boats. So we want to keep as many riders out there as safe as possible. What was the topic supposed to be for this segment again?
Gosh, I forgot. Like, why is it so hard to become a motorcyclist? Like, what are the barriers to entry?
Barriers to entry to becoming a motorcyclist. Well, one, Ultima drivers on Georgia 400.
Ultima drivers. Yes.
Ultima drivers, generally a problem. No.
Well, you could say Atlanta traffic in general, where we are, is just a deterrent.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think a great thing is training. People are like, oh, motorcycles are so cool. They're so interesting. I don't know how to get into that. The biggest thing is go to an MSF course. Go to, for example, there's the Honda Riders Training Center here in like the North Georgia area. That's a great place to just go learn about motorcycles to see if it's something that you like, something that you want to be interested in. Obviously, owning a motorcycle, they're not cheap things to buy and maintain. So
Hmm.
there are lots of, once you get your license, there are rental companies. You can rent bikes, very similar to Toro and things of that nature, that would be really helpful for people who just don't own a motorcycle or can't necessarily get their hands on one easily. And then, of course, I think is just like gear, having the correct gear, being safe with what you're wearing, your helmet, jacket, gloves, boots, and the whole nine, pants, of course. So,
Yeah, it's almost that just that startup cost and process is that super detrimental to getting it more because you want to get a car, you get a car, you go sit in it and you go. You don't have to
yeah, you don't need a
you
bunch of
don't have to
special
buy a
equipment.
seatbelt.
And yeah,
Yeah, you don't have to buy a steering wheel. You don't have to buy driving gloves, although some people, whatever floats your boat. You want to be weird. Um, but how much of that is just the startup cost versus just,
well,
or
so kind
is
of
it just the complexity of just riding a motorcycle? Thinking of someone like me that came from a background where I never drove a manual transmission, it just wasn't a thing, and I was
I think
honestly kind of
that's
intimidated by it at first, but I said I'm going for it. But how much of that is
I think that's a really good point. I think, as we here in the year 2025, we've got a lot of ways to get around a lot of the issues of learning to ride a motorcycle. Between Honda's DCT programs on some of their bikes, their new e-clutch on a couple of their bikes, we've got Yamaha's new automatic manual transmission that's on its way out.
yamped?
BMW, yamped. BMW's got a CVT situation. Kawasaki's new hybrid is an automatic as well. So I think that's
Yeah.
that's a huge hurdle for people who don't necessarily know how to ride a motorcycle or operate a manual transmission.
Hmm.
Getting an automatic or CVT esque vehicle is going to be extremely helpful for bringing more riders into our community. But
Hmm.
I think the startup cost I don't think is really any greater than that of most cars. I mean, you're going to go spend to get a halfway decent used car, $10,000. You can get a brand new bike for less than that with gear and taxes and
With
fees and all
gear.
the stuff. So, I mean, it's a matter of what you're comfortable spending the money on. I think because I feel like a lot of people like again, I don't know if I want to be doing that. I don't know if it's something I care about that much. It's tough to swallow a $10,000 pill. Like everyone, you need a car to get around. Like it's a
Sure.
pretty well known thing here in North America. North America is not in general a walkable place. Like there are certain like New York City, San Fran, parts of LA, like
Hmm.
if you live downtown, midtown Atlanta, you can walk a lot of it, but North America generally is you're not walkable country. Where the UK is very walkable, Spain is very walkable, Italy, places like that. And they have a lot of great public transit as well, which we have some public transit here, but not fantastic. So I think scooters are a great way for people to get involved. They're really, really inexpensive. They're all automatic, essentially. Not all of them, but the vast majority of them
Right.
is a great way to get into the sport. So I think barriers of entry for me is going to be like financial, a skill issue, which you could overcome both those things eventually, and then really just I think fear. A lot of people are afraid of bikes. Yeah.
Well, and I think I was going to bring that up. You say the fear. I think it's justified. I was going to approach it as the danger of it, the risk of it,
Yeah.
because people know that there are more motorcycle accidents, you know, per capita. Is that the right? More accidents per motorcycle than there are per car. Would that be the
Yeah,
right?
you're more likely to be in an accident on a motorcycle than you are in a car, but that is simply because there are so many more cars.
Right. So, do you think the danger of it, I hope I could phrase this right, is the danger that, or the fear that people see with this? Do you think there's the fear that they are not going to be able to operate it safely and basically tip over in a turn or something? Or is it the fear of the other riders and if, or the other drivers, and if they get hit, what happens? Is it more of the level of the consequence or just the percentage of it happening to you? Does that make
So
sense?
I think we did a great video this year of like 5 myths for beginner riders.
Mm-hmm.
We did that in 2024. It was a really great video. One of the biggest things we learned doing research for that video is like a lot of people think if you're leaning in a turn, you're just gonna fall over. Like people who've never
Yeah.
ridden a motorcycle or a bicycle even, or like if you're going quickly through a turn, you lean too far, you're just gonna fall over. Like that's just not necessarily the case. There's a
No,
lot of
you just turn sharper.
yeah, like there's a lot of physics and things, and then of course there's a limitation to grip. But like that's a really common myth is that like if you lean too far in a corner, you're just gonna fall over, which is technically true, but you've got to lean like 60 degrees. So
Well, if you lean far enough and not going fast enough, yes, you will. But
yeah,
yeah, it's one of those things you have to build up a comfort to.
yeah,
But do you think that's kind of a barrier that people just see that and are like, I don't want to fall over when I go into a turn?
yeah. I mean, it's pretty like it's weird that that's a thing. Like as a motorcyclist, you're like that's ridiculous. But for people who don't know, like that's a legitimate problem.
Yeah.
It's something they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
I feel like that fear or the motorcycles are dangerous
Hmm.
is a common theme out there, especially for non-motorcyclists. One of the things that just irks me, like when I'm talking to somebody new and I mention I ride a motorcycle or they find out or something,
Hmm.
is when they immediately go to the, oh, isn't that dangerous? I knew
Oh, I
somebody who
know a
owned a
guy
motor.
who died on a bike. It's yeah,
They immediately go to like worst case scenario,
yeah,
and it's like it makes me want to do that to them. Like somebody comes up to me like, hey, guess what? We're pregnant. Well, I knew a person whose baby died in their stomach and just,
yeah.
am I going to
Like
go all?
yeah,
I don't
like
know.
it's. I feel like a lot of people make that jump that like you
It's
hear about my cousin's buddy's brother, his friend, blah 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 blah.
He was on
Like
Dan Dan's video.
yeah, uh, you know, um, there's so many people I think that just immediately jump to, well, I hear it's dangerous, I've heard it's dangerous, I have pre-existing notions that it is dangerous. I'm like, okay, but you're much more likely to get in a car accident within the 5 miles of like around your house.
Hmm.
Like there are people. Oh well, I know a guy. I would never get on an airplane. I know a guy who knew a guy who crashed. Was on an airplane that crashed. It's like, cool. But you're also more likely to get struck by lightning twice than you are to be in a plane crash.
Hmm.
Like statistically.
Yeah. Now,
So like,
the consequences of a plane crash, unfortunately, are more severe than getting in a car wreck. So,
yeah,
do you think
which the
that plays into?
consequences of a motorcycle wreck are generally perceived as more severe than a car wreck. That being said,
Yes,
I've been in much more. Is that an emoji of me?
it
Jesus
is.
Christ.
You're welcome. Oh, I forgot. I put that
Yeah,
in
no
there.
one told me that. But the perceived danger is a I don't want to call it a problem, but it is a thing.
Sure.
Whereas the reality of a situation is very different. Obviously, there are for every one motorcycle wreck video on the internet, there are probably 5 car wreck videos on the internet.
Hmm.
Um, you know, but that doesn't stop that. Well, a lot of people have that like what is it called? Like a invincibility complex of like, well, when I'm in a
Yeah.
car, I'm surrounded, I've got airbags and all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, and if you get hit by a semi truck, you're screwed.
Right.
If you're on a motorcycle,
Yeah.
you get hit by a semi truck, you're screwed. Either way, you're screwed.
Right.
Like it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, you get rear-ended in a car, you're probably okay. You get rear-ended on a bike, you might be slightly injured, but you're depending on the situation, you're probably okay. Like, if you are doing the correct steps, making sure you are riding safely, defensively, in a
Hmm.
position that you are paying attention to the world around you, you can avoid a lot more accidents than you can in a car. Like I've been in traffic before, and I'm sure Dan could attest to this. I'm sure he's seen videos of it. Is like I've been in traffic before, like not right behind the car in front of me. I'm off to the side, and I see that the car behind me is not slowing down. I will scoot out of the way, and I've watched that car hit the car I was just
Yeah.
next to. And be like, that was I would
Yeah.
be dead. But because I'm tinier, I'm on a bike. I have the ability to wiggle out of situations.
Well, and that's one of the things as a biker you have to think about. Like most riders will never encounter that situation,
No,
but you have
hopefully.
to be mindful of it.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to be.
So,
It's very real. It can happen.
and maybe that goes into I'm justifying the barriers. There's a lot more that motorcyclists should do to be safer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a lot of motorcyclists that are not doing that, then you get these horror stories about accidents and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And because the consequences are more severe, that's what gets the attention, and that's what sticks with people and says, I'm never getting on two wheels. And it's unfortunate that it's one of those.
Yeah, I think it's disproportionate, and I think a lot of people see most. I don't have a stat, but this is an opinion of mine, and I could probably find a stat for it. But I feel like a lot of car drivers, you see that one asshole motorcyclist flying down the freeway, and you're like, well, all motorcyclists are assholes, and all of them are stupid, and none of them wear gear. That guy's wearing shorts and a t-shirt and blah, blah. That's just all motorcycles. Like, no,
Oh,
that's just
Jixer
not
bro.
true. Yeah, it's a Jixer bro. It's a Jixer bro doing a buck 30 down the freeway in traffic like an idiot, but they don't see the 75 other bikes that they've seen before that guy that are totally safe, normal people,
Mm-hmm.
just happen to be on a motorcycle.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. That's a good point too.
I
It's
think it's opinion bias. I think
yeah.
that's what it's called.
Um, and there are a lot of dumb drivers out there.
Mm-hmm.
Dan hits it like to be. I feel like there needs to be more stringent driving enforcement for licensing and such.
What's terrifying is in the state of Georgia, if you are 25 years old, you just go get a driver's license.
There's no
No
road
test.
test.
Nope. You just go get it.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Could you
gosh,
kind of English? Are you 25 years old? Can you prove that you're 25 years old? You want to drive a car? Cool, no problem.
that's terrifying, and it makes so much sense now when I think about Atlanta traffic.
It's so scary. A buddy of mine works
Oh
at the
my
DMV and is like horrified every day. He's like, I can't believe we hand out licenses to people, and like there needs to be a more strict test, and it needs to be more often. Because right now it's like you
Yes.
do the test when you're 16, and then you don't test again,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous. It needs to be
Yeah.
every
20,
5
20, 30
years.
years go by and there's different laws that are in place or something that you need to be aware of. And
Yep. And
oh
like
my
I
gosh.
think it needs to be every 5 or 10, and then as you get older, it needs to become more often.
I would agree with that.
Because the number of like super old people that I see out on the road
In their
that
Buicks
like in their Buicks and in their and in
that are
their
30 feet long.
30
I'm
foot long
coming back.
Buick Enclave, and like they're doing 15 under the speed limit, and they're not able to hold their lane, and they can't see over the steering wheel. It's like there needs like I don't want to take people's. I'm very pro freedom. I don't want to take anyone's freedoms away.
Sure.
But like there comes a point where you are a danger to society.
Yeah. But driving is a privilege, not a right.
Yeah.
And so I think it has to be earned, and people are earning that way too easily. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if that really goes back to our topic of barriers to entry, but maybe it does. In
Maybe
the
it
sense
does. Is good training. Financially, it's really no different than buying a car. Um, the maintenance is a little more expensive or a little cheaper depending on how many miles you ride.
Mm-hmm.
I think the perceived safety or risk, perception bias is definitely a thing. But
I think it's also one of those things. If we can get more people just to get a taste of it, like Honda has been doing those ride days.
yep,
I think they're starting to do more of those. Actually got my wife to go on one a couple years ago that Doodle had
nice,
promoted, so we got to meet her up there. That was pretty cool.
sweet.
But just the other day though, we were out riding. Like she gets on the ruckus and we'll take some back roads and whatever.
Yeah,
And she was on that. She was like, oh, I don't know, it might be want to get something a little bigger. And I'm just like,
oh yeah,
but to that point, I think if people kind of get on it, and at least experience it a little bit, I feel like that can take down a lot of perception or just that initial fear of balancing on a bike. You know what I mean?
yeah. Like
It's not that. It is a big deal, but it's not insurmountable. So
yeah. I mean, it's. I
well,
think like
and
getting on a dirt bike or a scooter is a great way to introduce people to the sport and realize that it's really not a huge deal.
sure. Yeah, small bore has a good point. A motorcycle is usually a second vehicle in the States. It is a luxury item to most people in the United States.
That is very
Uh,
true. Where
it, it
it is like the main form of transportation for most everywhere else in the world, which I
now
find is so interesting.
it's my primary mode of transportation to work,
Yeah, it was mine for years. I have a car now due to some other things we have going on right now.
which may be a story for another day, but because of where I work and the cost to park a car,
Mm-hmm.
that was the catalyst for me to pursue motorcycling.
Yeah, it's a
And look
very
where I
real
am
thing.
now
Parking,
on
parking
the
a
internet with
car
Patty
versus a
Rick.
bike, right? Live on the internet talking about motorcycle stuff, however many years later. But yeah, I think to wrap up that bit is just financials not that big of a difference. It is a luxury item here in the U.S., but it's so different than everywhere else in the world. Um, and I think it's a perceived bias of a skill that
Right.
has to be created.
Yeah, I think if there were just ways to just get it, make it more available, and but it's hard because the U.S. is so car centric.
Mm-hmm.
It's just tough to do. So
Yeah, things are just far apart.
um, so if you are a motorcyclist, just share with your friends like how it's fun and it's not too bad. But
It's literally
I don't know.
like one of my most therapeutic things I can do.
Absolutely, two-wheel therapy is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this one. Once again, thank you to all our members that support us over here on YouTube. So if you're listening on podcast, head over to youtube.com/at live on two wheels. Join us for our live streams there. Also consider becoming a member. Support us there, and you'll be eligible for giveaways and prizes, which we just had earlier in
Yep.
this live stream.
So Leaf and Control Alt Owned, you guys have 7 days from today, February 6th, to claim that. Hit up Ghost on the Instagram.
And then also big shout out to our primary supporter, Cardo Systems.
Yep.
They are running again a Valentine's sale starting tomorrow through the 16th. You have to use the link in the description. That's how the discount will be applied and to support us. So,
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Well,
So
guys,
I mean, there you go.
It's been your boy Patty Rick.
And Ghost. And
Thanks
I
for
need to get
hanging
out. I need to get out there and do that Smart Rider course. And
Yeah. I'm gonna find that PDF and
yeah,
do that.
Dan said earlier in the chat
The
it's
weather's
still
gonna
on.
be pretty terrible this weekend, but we'll see how
Yeah,
next week looks.
yeah. He said it's on his, I guess, his store. It's still like a free purchase.
Sweet, raining all next week
Um,
too.
Here we go.
Oh, Nick.
Oh, yeah.
Nick Ingalls, a member for 23 months, wanted to see how close he was to 2 years. Almost there, buddy. March
Next
will
month.
get you to 2 years. That's wild. And then I'll let you take that one.
Hobbit of Chaos, 199 super chat.
Chaos. Very on brand for our little hobbit there.
You know, when I was younger and I saw that word, I was like, what is
Chaos.
chaos?
What's chaos?
Chaos.
Chaos.
Is that Asian? Is that an Asian dish?
Who knows? Well, gang, thank you for hanging out with us this month. Thanks, Dan, for stopping by and hanging for a little while and telling us, getting us kicked off on talking about the smart battle and safe riders initiative. So super
Maybe we could
stoked
pull Dan on
that.
here one time to talk about that.
Maybe we'll need to.
Dan?
We'll see if we can work that out. We'll see if he's still in chat. I don't know. But you guys have a wonderful rest of your month, the rest of your Thursday evening. For our live stream folks, for our podcast people, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we weren't too ridiculous, but odds are we probably were.
Remember, don't be a jerk in your circle.